but since coming to live with her uncle's family, she hadn't received so much as a dry peck on the brow. The shameless scapegrace took advantage of her cousin's distraction by dipping his long, tapered fingers into the lacy décolletage of her gown. Alice murmured a half-hearted protest. Catriona rolled her eyes. Alice had pitched a more convincing fit at breakfast that morning, when Catriona had wolfed down the last kipper. Between one breath and the next, Alice's objection melted to a mewling gasp of pleasure. She arched her back to better fill the officer's skilled fingers with her ample breasts. Catriona wanted to turn away in disgust, but couldn't. She hadn't been quite so captivated since Monsieur Garnerin had crashed his hot air balloon into a flock of bleating bells at Vauxhall Gardens. With a grace more deserving of a minuet, the man pivoted, gently backing Alice toward the bed of hay directly beneath Catriona's perch. The sun-dappled shadows flirted with his face, making it impossible to get a clear look at him. Catriona suppressed a groan of frustration as they disappeared from view. If the man could handle a warship with half that finesse, she thought, Britain's victory over Napoleon's navy should be assured. The intriguing rustle of both hay and clothing being rearranged whetted her curiosity beyond bearing. Scrambling to her hands and knees, Catriona crawled forward until she could hang her head over the edge of the loft. She had forgotten about the kitten perched on her shoulder until he dug 10 tiny claws into her tender nape. Sucking back a yelp of pain, she let go of her nose and made a grab for the kitten. A cloud of dust and pollen flew up her nose. A mighty sneeze gathered in her lungs. Even if the good Lord had blessed her with 3 hands, she wouldn't have had time to decide which one to use to grab the kitten, muffle the sneeze, and maintain her teetering balance. As it was, she could only bat wildly at the air as she tumbled headfirst out of the hayloft and crashed into the imposing back of the man preparing to settle himself between her cousin's pale, shapely thighs. Simon Wescott could feel the hot breath of hell blowing down his neck. It wasn't the first time he'd experienced that particular whiff of brimstone, nor was it likely to be the last. Hazardous experience had taught him that enraged papas, the self-appointed guardians of their daughter's virtue, either real or illusory, were even more dangerous than irate husbands. Fearful that it was just such a papa who had landed on his back, he waited for a muscled forearm to tighten around his throat. But the thing on his back just lay there, wheezing down his neck like a consumptive walrus. His confusion mounted as something began to nibble at his freshly trimmed hair. He frowned. Good Lord, had one of the Earl's ponies fallen on them? Gingerly, he reached around and extracted the tiny culprit from his head, holding it by the scruff of the neck to avoid its windmilling claws. The bit of orange fluff hissed and spit at him like a suckling demon. The weight on his back shifted. He takes poorly to being handled that way. I'd let him go if I were you. The merry voice bore the faintest trace of a lilt. The breath stirring his hair was warm and smelled faintly of cinnamon biscuits. When he failed to heed the warning quickly enough, the kitten twisted, sinking its teeth deep into the tender pad of his thumb. He shook off the animal, gritting his teeth against a bellow of pain. The weight on his back scrambled away. The woman beneath him shrieked in outrage and shoved at his chest. He rolled off of her, forced to shuffle and refasten clothing with a haste that challenged even his adept hands. "You horrid beast!" For a dazed moment, Simon thought Alice's hissed denouncement was directed toward him. Jerking up her bodice, she sprang to her feet, her fashionably pallid cheeks blotchy with rage. "You nasty, wretched little troll! How dare you spy on me?" Brushing hay from his breeches, Simon climbed to his feet to discover the object of Alice's